good in the world. And I'm going to give you all, give people another like 10 seconds till we get started. If you do not have a sheet of paper and a pencil handy or a pen or something to write on, I would encourage you to get it. And I would also encourage you to get a sheet of paper and pencil, not to write what we're going to write on your computer. Trust me, it'll make a big difference. We are going to actually do some time management this morning. I've done it with 2 other groups of your employees, and almost everyone walked away with like, this was awesome, I love it. So my goal is at the end of this, we're actually going to walk away with some things that you can do and a little better management of your existing schedule. So with that, I'm going to get started. I am Bob Graham. Many of you, I see familiar names. Welcome. Good to see you again. I'm always excited to work with your company. It's one of my favorites. And you'll see I've got a little different presentation style. This is something I've been working on in the background for about the last 3 months. And finally, I got it the way I want it. So I can show the slides on the side and you see me the whole time. So hopefully that'll work better. I think it helps engage a little more. And if you don't know me, I own a company called Breakthrough Solutions. We do soft skills training and management and speaking. Soft skills being the skills we use to interact with other people. And believe it or not, one of those skills is time management. Other people react to us based on our time management skills. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. So with that, let me get into the presentation. First of all, can make you do some work. Give me a rating, 1 to 5, 5 being awesome, on your current time management skills. Be honest with me, and if you'd like to put it in the chat so we can all enjoy it, that would be great. Not judging here, just want to get a baseline, get a barometer. I would tell you mine are about 3 to 3.5. And knowing Fundation like I do, I'm anticipating that I will get some tenths of a point, because in the other 2 presentations, I got lots of tenths of a point. I see a lot of 3s, Alex, Miguel, Daniel, Mana. Okay, other people, what do you think? Put it in there, think about it. If you were to judge yourself on time management, how would you rate? And it's important to start this with an understanding where you are. And if you rate yourself a 3, that doesn't mean you're a horrible person. It doesn't mean you're not effective at work. It just means that there's room to grow and room to improve. So what we're going to spend the next hour, 15, 20 minutes on is, how can we improve it? And one of the ways I wanted to help you see the value of management is throughout this presentation, I'm going to give you some quotes from famous people. So jazz musician Miles Davis said, time isn't the main thing, it's the only thing. The only thing. Okay, so keep that in the back of your head. This has important implications for us. The average employee, according to the latest research, spends 2 hours a day doing the wrong stuff, missing deadlines, being ineffective because of poor time management. 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. Spread out over the year, that's a lot of time. And because of that, we get to that number, 544 billion a year in lost productivity. Now, if you said to me, how much is that per person? The research, it varies from about $2,000 per person up to $9,000 per person per year lost because of poor time management and its implications. That's a lot of money, folks. Think about that. If you were writing a check for that, would you want to think about your employees working just 6 of the 8 hours they're supposed to work? Or conversely, we see this all the time. There are people that work 60 hours a week, but they're not as effective as if they were really focused on working 40 or 35 a week. So we'll talk more about that as we go. Another thing for you to think about for a minute, how do you know someone else is managing their time poorly? Give me in the chat box some of the ways that you know someone is ineffective in managing their time. Not Miguel, very nice. Not meeting deadlines, correct. What else? What are some of the other signs? write in the chat, or if you want, I'm happy to, you can hop on the speaker, and I'd love to hear voices. That never bothers me. So if you've got the answer and don't feel like typing, that's great.
Procrastination.
Procrastination, very nice. Yes, we're going to talk about that more. That's going to come up again. Alex says late for meetings. Yes. And it's funny. I would almost argue that of all the people I've worked with time management issues on, the number one thing that I hear from the people they work with is that they're always late for meetings. So if you're someone who's always late for meetings, odds are that's a time management issue. Now, I know what people say because I've worked with lots of people on this. Well, I can't be on time because I'm going back to back to back. I'm like, that's a time management issue. If you have a 10 o'clock meeting, if you were supposed to be here at 10 o'clock, you committed to this, at 10 till 10, you should have been saying to whoever you were talking to, hey, we got to wrap this up because I got to be somewhere else at 10 o'clock. I only have 5 more minutes. Part of this is having the discussion. Jonathan says, not working on the items that are agreed as important. Yes, thank you. Absolutely, Jonathan. That is one of the big things. Working on the wrong stuff. And I get the sense from talking to Noah and chatting with you all at these presentations that your company doesn't have a lot of wiggle room on what you're working on. You've got tight deadlines, you've got demanding customers, and you've got to capitalize in the moment, getting the most productivity in that moment to achieve the goals that your company needs to achieve to grow. And by the way, that's every company. You're not the only company facing that. But working on the wrong items can really bite the company in the unfortunate part of the body. I almost thought I was going down the wrong road there. I saved myself. I love this quote. This is one that I love it because he who every morning plans the transactions of the day. Everything we do in a day is a transaction. And I love thinking about that way. We're giving, we're giving something. We're giving our time and we're taking back what we need. We're giving someone else our resources. And that transactional quality is great because it's almost like it becomes money. Time is money. And the last part of this, guide him through the labyrinth of the most busy day. You follow the plan, and then you can get through the maze that is the day. And let's face it, the day is a maze. Hence the phrase amazing. Wow, how was your day? It was amazing. It's 10:08 this morning. I've already had 3 things that were not on my schedule added to my schedule today because of client issues. That's not unusual. That is the world we live in. We have so much access to information and resources. We have immediate access to people, and that changes the game. Okay. I want you to take a moment and think about what bad time management feels like in your body. So what does it feel like when you're late to a meeting? What does it feel like the night before you have a big deadline and you don't think you're going to make it? What does it feel like when you're working on a team and you realize the team is not going to meet the deadline? What does it feel like when you can't figure out where you're supposed to be at 11:30 today? And you're scrambling around checking emails. Anika says stressful. Anika, go a step further. I want to know where you feel it in your body. Where do you feel that stress? Really think about it for a minute. For me, I feel the stress in the back of my neck. Miguel says in my gut. Okay, that's great. And what, Miguel, does that feel like in your gut? The more we can understand that feeling, the more we're going to realize that we need to overcome it.
Specifically, just so anytime that I don't, obviously that I'm not going to meet a deadline or something is going to wrong, it's just, I feel like complete knots in my gut. So.
Yeah. And not the way you want to live your day, right?
Yeah, no.
That's the thing, and that's what I want to get across. We all feel these things. And David, you asked a great question. Out of curiosity, if you don't feel that stress, is that abnormal? I'm not a psychologist. My guess would be that you feel some stress in some way when you're not meeting the demands put on you. You may not be sensing it. You know, I didn't realize some of the stress in my life until a couple of years ago, and I realized that not exercising was causing me stress. It's causing me stress because I wasn't sleeping. I didn't make the correlation. But I really believe that our bodies are telling us over and over and over that we need to change our behavior. That if you want to be happy, Bob, you need to not put off this presentation prep until the 5 minutes before it's due and be stressed. Because that means you're not going to sleep well last night. You're not going to eat a real good breakfast this morning, or you're going to eat no breakfast this morning. Your stomach's going to bother you. You're going to be grumpy with your wife. You're not going to be engaged with discussions with friends than the day before. All those things. And I feel it in my body right between my neck and my head. There's that little spot, like that little indentation. That's where I feel it. When I feel that feeling, I know that that's tied to me having a deadline or something that I didn't properly manage. And again, that's our body telling us that something's out of whack. Our body doesn't give us a stress response just because it's got nothing better to do. It's a response. In its very name, a stress response is saying it's a response to something. What we as humans are not so good at is figuring out what that stress response is from. And it's funny when I talk to people about this with their stress or with their time management, and they start to think about where they feel it. They usually tell me one thing, and then we're talking a week or two later, and then there's a list of 5 things. And then a week or two later, it's a longer list. With one of my clients, it was, I drink more alcohol when I'm going to miss a deadline. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, it's almost like I want to forget it. So the night before I'm going to miss a deadline, I drink more. I'm like, well, what does that do? Well, it means I don't sleep real well. It means I get the next morning and I feel lousy. And then I get into a fight with my boss and it's just a big thing. I was like, where did it start? It's like, it started when I realized I was going to miss a deadline. And I said, no, it started early. It started when you were putting together your schedule. When you were allocating time, you didn't allocate the appropriate amount of time. Managing time is literally being the manager of it. That's controlling it. Not letting time come at you, but you control it. If I'm making sense so far, put a Y in the chat box. Great, good. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Kyle, David, Michael, beautiful. Victoria, Alex, Daniel, perfect. Thank you, Kristen. Here are some of the things I've heard people describe in their body. Trouble eating. I had one of my clients tell me that their food didn't taste good. Like they made the same thing for dinner that they made 2 weeks earlier, and they followed the recipe to the T. And the family, she was with her family and she's asking the family, this doesn't taste very good. They're like, no, it tastes just like it tasted last time. It's awesome. She couldn't taste it. And for the record, this was before COVID. So if you're thinking she had COVID, that wasn't it. This was like a year and a half ago. I just heard it. Sleeping issues, being restless. One of my friends tells me that when he is managing his time poorly, that means he has work that he takes home. And while he's sitting with his kids at 7 o'clock watching a Disney movie with them, he can't sit. He'll stand up and pace around. And his 7-year-old son said to him one night, Daddy, what's wrong? You're not watching the movie. And he said, I have a lot on my mind. And his son said, you should get away from it. 7-year-old kid. What's amazing to me is kids are often the ones with the insight and with the wisdom, without all the filter and all the this and that. And the father, he talked to me about this and he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, You got to figure out a way to manage your time. So when you're with your kids, you're with your kids. That's the reason you work so hard. We also have, we get anxious, we're worried, or we withdraw. When we withdraw from the people around us, when we withdraw from our friends, when we withdraw from our spouse and our family, that's not good. And when we're having these body reactions, we tend to make poor decisions as a result. We have a hair trigger. Oh, I can't think about this right now. I don't have time for this. No, I can't. Don't tell me any more information. And we make bad decisions. And that's part of that cost. When we were talking about the 544 billion, part of that cost is bad decisions. There was a study about 25 years ago of airline pilots, and they connected their ability to land perfectly with whether the flight was coming in early or on time or late. When the flight was late, the landings were harder. They still landed, but they were harder because they were coming in faster and harder because they felt like they were missing a deadline. You know, for airplanes, if you know anything about the airplane industry, they're so finely tuned that, you know, if a Southwest plane lands in Baltimore's airport at 7:08 a.m., it's supposed to be back out at 7:28 or 7:38, 30 minutes later. So they've got to clean it, empty it, restart it. And that's their schedule. And sometimes it doesn't work out. You have a couple of people that need wheelchairs, it gets all messed up. And then the pilot starts feeling the pressure, and the flight crew feels the pressure. And if you've ever been on a flight that's running late, you can feel the tension, especially if it's in the morning, because if it's messed up in the morning, that means that crew's working 8-10-hour days, and they're going to be late all the way through. And no one likes that. Zig Ziglar, the business author, said, lack of direction, not the lack of time, is the problem. We all have 24-hour days. It's not a lack of time. We say all the time, I don't have enough to do this. It's not that. It's not we're focusing our time. As Zig Ziglar pointed out, we all have the same number of hours today. You've got 24 hours from midnight to 11:59. You choose how to use them. You've chosen to use this hour and a half with me. Now, for all I know, you're checking your email right now, scrolling Facebook, watching the impeachment trial in the background. That's your choice. But if you're multitasking, are you really managing your time? And if you aren't paying full attention to what I'm doing here, and at the end you go, that wasn't really useful for me, is that my fault or your fault? And we do that all the time. We go to a meeting. I can't tell you how many meetings I go to with my one client, and 6 people are on their laptops the whole time. They're not even paying attention. And then someone says, well, what do you think, Steve? And Steve goes, I'm sorry, what are we talking about? Why are we in a meeting? Steve, really, why? And when I'm usually consultant in those meetings, and I'll say, why are we meeting? If we're not all paying attention, if you all would pay attention for 30 minutes, we'd be done. The reason your meetings go 2 hours is because you're not focusing. Either this meeting is important and worth your time, or it's not. That's directing your time, being focused on what am I trying to do? So as you look at your day today, what are your goals for the day? What do you need to do? What happens in the office because of poor time management? What do you think? What happens in the office because of poor time management? You can write the answer down, or if you want to talk to me, I'd love to hear your voice. We have a small enough group that we can talk.
I was gonna say one thing that I experienced a lot when we were in the office was waiting for meetings to start. Either rooms aren't available, there's kind of this gathering.
Yeah, it's funny, Alex. That's really funny. That would be something that if Noah said to me, "Hey, based on what you heard from people in the last couple of presentations, what would you say that we should change?" I would say you got to figure out better meeting spaces. Because I've heard that over and over, like we're constantly queued up waiting to use a room.
Mm-hmm.
And either there aren't enough resources or people are lingering. And, there's a certain element of that. It's funny, Zoom meetings or Microsoft Teams or Slack or however you want to do it seem to be more effective. I see companies being better about starting the meeting on time. And I think as we go forward, we're going to see more people working at home long term, and we're going to see more meetings being more crisp without that office space issue. Thank you for that, Alex. Some of the other comments, you leave later and your family suffers, said David. That's true. It's funny, poor time management leads to working more hours. Or more accurately, it leads to being involved in work more hours. I've worked with people that work 50 hours a week, and I help them get to 35 hours a week, and they're more effective. One guy got a huge raise because he was getting more done. And they're like, dude, you're like the rock star. All he did was manage his time. He cut out extra stuff. He was a manager, so he delegated more to his employees. And that single act saved him about 10 hours a week. Then he got another 5 because he really started to figure out what he was doing. And he spent a half hour every afternoon planning his next day. Literally to the minute. Jonathan says, people end up handing their emergencies to other people. Yes, that's a problem within an organization. Oh, I can't take care of that. I'm already overloaded. Meanwhile, you've watched the person not be effective in managing their time. And one of the best ways you can know that most people who struggle with time management will have a really messy workspace. The research affirms this in my experiences. If you go into an office and it's totally disheveled and the person's like, oh, I know where everything is, your time isn't managed well. And for me, when I'm managing my time well, my office is clean. When I start to slack, my office starts to get messy and my time management starts to fail. And it's one of the signs I know in me. It's like, whoa, I got to get this under control, because I walk into my basement office like this thing looks like a bomb went off. And meanwhile, what am I doing at 10 o'clock today? Who am I meeting with and all that? Coworkers pick up the slack for your poor time management. Yes. Then office conflict, and of course the snowball effect of incomplete tasks and impacts on a team. Yes. My poor time management will extrapolate into my clients. Yours will affect other employees, especially in a company that's trying to do as much as your company. There's not a lot of wiggle room. There aren't extra employees. We're way past the years of extra employees. If anything, we're tightening the number of employees, which means we're expecting more from fewer people. And that's part of the conundrum. Here are some of the things we talked about. A lot of these. One I want to really talk about is low morale. When I work with teams and they're struggling to manage times and projects and they're missing deadlines and people don't know who's responsible and accountability is all out of whack, the morale suffers. I've been in meetings where they invite me into a meeting and I'm just observing, and the people are like ready to kill each other. You told me you'd have this done by yesterday and now I'm behind, blah, blah. Whoa, 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 whoa. You're dealing with symptoms. What's the disease? The disease is poor time management. By the time you're yelling at someone because they didn't meet a deadline, it's too late. And then someone mentioned earlier the idea of procrastination. we know from research that if you procrastinate about the little things, you will start to procrastinate about the bigger things and the bigger things. It's a snowball effect. Oh, you know, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do it the next day. We see it each year with small business owners and their taxes. I mean, I talk to business owners all the time, and they like, oh, I dread doing my taxes. So they put it off and they put it off. And then April 15th comes and they get a 6-month extension. And then they put it off and they put it off. Meanwhile, their bank account's getting overdrawn. They're not invoicing because they aren't following. And it just snowballs, all from the decision in early February not to do their taxes. Here it is, October. They haven't invoiced all summer. I had a client that didn't invoice at all summer. Like $160,000 of invoices not sent out. And he was getting ready to go out of business because he didn't have any money. I'm like, what? You're working? What are you? I haven't invoiced people. Why not? Well, it reminds me I need to do my taxes and I have to go into QuickBooks. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, here I am. Procrastination. If you're someone who's procrastinating about anything, I don't want to have this hard talk. I don't want to go to my boss and tell him I need a raise. I don't want to do this one little project. I would tell you the first thing to do, the things that you're procrastinating doing, make them the priority tomorrow. Start there tomorrow. Commit that tomorrow is going to be your get over procrastination day. Do all the things you've been putting off, and then Monday morning, hit the ground running, and don't accept procrastination from yourself anymore. The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said the common man is not concerned about the passage of time. The man of talent is driven by it. Driven by time. Can you be driven by time? I will tell you, I'm 55 years old. It occurred to me about 2.5 years ago that I am getting older and I better get stuff done. I'm on the back nine of the golf course of life. I don't have time to waste anymore. So I'm driven by the need to get things done. I wrote a book in 6 months. It'll be out in a couple weeks. The last book I wrote took me almost a year. The book before that, I don't have time to waste. I committed the time. I allocate the time each day from 8 to 9:30 every day. It was sacrosanct. You could not get me in those times. Or if you got me in those times, I owed myself an hour and a half and I picked it up on the weekend. That's how you achieve things. That's how you write a book. That's how you learn how to play the guitar. That's how you get better at coding. You commit the time and you honor it by being there. Here's something we don't think about with time. It is a limited resource. Anyone who ever says to you, I've got time, I've got plenty of time. No, they don't. They have the same amount of time as you or me. It's also one of the most easily squandered things that we have. And man, when we give it up, when we throw away our time, it's lost. You can't get it back. If you don't get value out of this presentation by 11:30, it's not like you can go back to your boss and be like, hey, I sent her a presentation. That was a total waste of my time. Give me back my hour and a half. You're gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? It doesn't work that way. And most importantly, you value your time more than anyone else. That's why you have to control it. You have to manage it, because if you don't value your time, don't believe that your boss is going to value it. I've been a manager and I had employees that were working 1 million hours a week. I had no idea. They weren't telling me. I just kept heaping work on them and they kept getting it done. It was at an annual review where one of my employees said, hey, by the way, I'm working about 90 hours a week. Can I get a raise? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And they explained to me, I had no idea. That wasn't what our company was supposed to do. What we did was we hired another person and split the work up. I did not know that. Took until an annual review, so it was like 10 months later. And often, if we're honest with people, hey, you're giving me this new project. I'm already kind of at about, my peak. So which of these other things do you want me to put aside? Managers and leaders need to be faced with that situation. They need to know the cost. It shouldn't be a one-way street where the manager or leader comes to you and says, hey, Bob, I need you to do this other thing. I know you're really busy and I know it's going to take about 30 hours. Fit it in the next 30 days. No, hey, I'm already at capacity. What do you want me to give up? And if you're a manager or leader, when you assign more work to someone, you should already be thinking about the prioritization. That's one of the things we don't do in offices very well. The author Tony Morgan said, you get to decide where your time goes. You can either spend it moving forward or you can spend it putting out fires. You decide. And if you don't decide, others will decide for you. He's basically saying no one cares about your time like you do. I also like his contrast. You either spend it moving forward or putting out fires. Notice he doesn't say you either move it for time, you spend it moving forward or you stand still. No, putting out fires, and I have never talked to any leader, manager, employee who's like, I would love to spend more time in my day putting out fires. That just doesn't happen. And he's making clear here, lack of time management, not deciding where your time goes, means you're going to put out fires. And you're going to allow others to choose how you use your time. Jonathan says, but then whom do we get to put out the fires? Look at that, whom, I like that, that's nice. Well, I think, Jonathan, the goal is to try to avoid fires. Fires are a effect of poor time management, poor planning, poor mounting of resources. Something, if a customer calls and says, hey, I'm using your stuff, Fundation, and I see a problem, it's not syncing up with our whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't know enough to be able to be really coherent on that, but you get the idea. Hey, okay, if I trace it back, your company hired to trace it back, I'm going to bet the mistake of that fire was way back, early in the process. Oh, we didn't test it enough. Oh, we used old coding. Oh, we didn't update with the software. Oh, we didn't realize this client does this thing. I rarely ever hear from anyone, yeah, we got this fire. We didn't expect this. Most of the time, the people I talk to are like, yeah, I kind of expected this to happen. I have a company I'm working with. They do mobile auto service. And I figured out from talking to their customers, talking to employees, and doing some extrapolation that about half the work they do doesn't meet their standards. I go to the owner and tell him that, and he says, yeah, that's about right. So they're putting out fires every day. They have to go back and work on a car again. They have to change out the filter because they put the wrong filter in. They put 10W40 oil in the vehicle and it was supposed to be 10W30. Heck, they put new tires on a vehicle that they were supposed to be getting rid of for the client, and then build the client for the tires. Client's like, you bought this car from me for like $200. Why are you telling me about the tires? They're like, oh, you didn't look at the right order number. So sorry, never mind. Lost money. If I'm making sense so far, throw me a Y in the chat box. All right, good, thank you. David, Kristen, I'm getting to know some names. Daniel, Kyle, beautiful. Thank you. All right, now we're gonna get granular and really deal with this. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to write on that sheet of paper I asked you to get, not on your computer, but on a sheet of paper. I see Alex just got his paper out. He's ready. He's grabbing his pen. He's ready. I want you to write a list of at least 10 things you have to accomplish today or in the next week. 10 things that you need to do. They can be personal or they can be professional, or both. And if you're writing big things, like get my taxes done, for the purposes of this exercise, break that down to the steps. Gather my records. Talk to my spouse about charitable contributions. Talk to my tax advisor. Schedule the appointment. Review the tax documents. Take them to the post office or get stamps on them. The more you can break this down into discrete steps, the better off you're going to be. What I find happens a lot with people is that we only put the big things on there. I need to get my taxes done. And that's an overwhelming task. Tell me that. I can say that with great certainty. I've got to get my taxes done. When I think of it in that big approach, that seems daunting. But when I can break it down into discrete steps, gather my bank records, gather my business records, talk to my wife about charitable contributions, set an appointment with my tax advisor, meet with the tax advisor. Those discrete steps, the things along the way, if you can write those out, capture those on your list, that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. You will have gotten your money's worth out of this just from that little tip. Y'all ready to move to the next step? Do you have 10? Alex, I can see you on screen. You got 10?
I only have 4 so far. But
All right, I'm going to give you another minute then. I'm going to be quiet. Now, if you heard about the first group I did this with, I actually sang songs from Dear Evan Hansen and from Les Mis, and I think Godspell while they were working, because I hate quiet. But I'm going to try to be quiet for a minute. I'm going to look at the pretty trees. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on in the interest of time, but I want to point out that if you can't come up with that list of things you need to do pretty quickly, that would be a sign to me that your time management skills might be thrown off a little bit. I go through peaks and valleys with my time management. When I'm humming along, I can give you a list of 26 things I need to do. One of the ways we can procrastinate is to not even think about what we need to do. But even if you get 7 or 8 or 6, we can still do these activities. Okay, first strategy. If there's anything on your list that will take 5 minutes or less, I want you to put a box around it. I can see Alex, I think he just circled it or put a box around at least one. Yep. All right, nice. Okay, so first, this is the 5-minute rule. Anything that's going to take you 5 minutes or less, get it off your plate right away. So as soon as we get done this meeting, if you put a box around anything on your list, do it. Get it done. The 5-minute rule also applies to email. This is one of the ways, this is like my go-to way to save executives time. I'll watch them with their email and they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, they'll read the long email from their employee and then they're like, okay, I have to craft a response. I'm like, what do you mean you have to craft a response? It looks like a yes, no question. Can I go on this trip or can I not go on this trip? Well, I need to think about it. I need to look at the budget. Okay, how long will that take you? About 2 minutes. Do it and reply right away. Get it off your plate. One of the big hindrances to effective time management is going through those emails more than once. My emails are really simple. Archive, respond, archive, trash. 3 options. And if I've archived it, it means I've dealt with it. It is not coming back up. It's off my plate, gone. And what I find also for executives is forcing them to move more quickly through their email actually makes them more effective as leaders. There aren't that many emails that you have to have long discussions over. And I would tell you, if you do have to have a discussion over it, pick up the phone if it's during work hours and call them and say, hey, I got your email. Let's talk about it right now. Do you have 5 minutes? And then cling to the 5 minutes. Literally hold them to 5 minutes. One of the best ways to manage time is to set the rules up front. Did you hear what I said at the beginning of this? I said over the next hour and about 20 minutes. I want to make a contract with you at the beginning. This is what you're going to commit to. Car dealers do this all the time. If you go into a car dealership, all right, so I want to ask you some questions. It's going to take about an hour to go through this process. Do you have an hour right now? No, I only have 20 minutes. Okay, can we schedule time? Part of time management is respecting your time and other people's times by setting realistic time constraints. And don't give me the, oh, well, the meeting was only supposed to be a half hour, but then we started brainstorming and I was afraid to cut it off. Cut it off. Cut it off. People will learn when you respect the time and when you say it's a 30-minute meeting and it's a 30-minute meeting, they're going to respect you a lot more and they're going to follow better. If we're doing a 30-minute meeting, at 25 into it, I'm like, hey, we got 5 more minutes. Let's wrap up. Are there any big things we haven't covered? Oh, well, we have to, oh, we're not gonna have time. Guess we'll have to schedule that for next week. Okay, so the 5-minute rule. This is, if you do nothing else but list what you have to do for the day and use the 5-minute rule, you're already on the plus side. You will send me an email in a week or 2 and be like, dude, you saved me like an hour a day. I can feel it. It's awesome. I'm hearing the birds sing. I've been home and helping my work. My spouse is thinking I'm a great guy or woman. I mean, what? It's amazing. And I see this all the time. Stephen Covey said, the key is not in spending time, but investing in it. Investing in. Do you invest your time? If your time equals money, because I hate to tell you all, your time does equal money. Figure out what your hourly rate is. Are you the right person to do a task at your salary? I charge clients anywhere from $100 an hour to $300 an hour. It would be crazy for me to waste 5 hours on my taxes when a tax professional will do it for $300. In those 5 hours, I can recoup that money and more. Choosing what we do. And I'm not just saying as a leader, I'm saying as an employee. If you're at the lowest rung of the ladder at this company, you have choices. Should I be taking out the trash, or do they have a staff person that can do that? Should I be doing this? I tell people all the time, if you've got these things that you're doing, if you're the one who always cleans the kitchen because you like to clean the kitchen, that's on your time. What are you procrastinating by doing that? What's that thing you're not doing because you like to clean the kitchen? Yes, the kitchen needs to be cleaned, but the person who volunteers every time is putting stuff off. All right, now we're going to walk through 4 other approaches to managing time. These are 4 that I find are worth considering. And let me say at the beginning of this, I am not advocating for any of them. I am merely giving you options. This is like going to the Chinese restaurant. You pick the food you want. You want sushi? I want fried rice. No harm, no foul. Okay. And by the way, you could get sushi and fried rice both. And wonton soup. You could mix some of these up. And ultimately, you could build your own time management system that might be part of one, part of another. Okay. So the first one is a prioritization list. So go to your list of 10 items. I want you to mark an A, B, or C next to every item. A means I got to get done pretty soon, like by the end of the day today. B means maybe Monday. C means by Wednesday or Thursday of next week. A, B, and C, and there's no B plus or A minus. You got 3 categories, A, B, or C. And I'm going to guess you're at the point where you're going, hey, you know what? I got A, B, and C, and I got 1 or 2 that don't even make the criteria. He didn't give me another category. What would you think that I want you to do with those that don't make A, B, or C? Anyone? David, you win. David says get rid of it. If it doesn't rank A, B, or C, it's out. Doesn't mean it might not be something to do in a month or a year, but it doesn't make the list right now. This is the beauty of the prioritization list. This is where you start to take control of your time. This is where you're managing. And you may say, well, my boss says this is an A, but I think it's a C. That's a discussion. Hey, I'm going through my prioritization list, and I've got a thing on here that's a C that I think you think is an A, and I need us to figure out, is it a C or an A? I have other people that do this 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter what you use, but prioritizing. I do this every evening before the next day. At the end of my workday, I take 10 to 20 minutes. I write down all the things that are scheduled that I have to do the next day. And then I prioritize. And in the morning, when I go to my computer, it's sitting right in front of me. There's no getting started in the morning like, what am I going to do? It's right there. Now, some days at 8 a.m., I look at that list and go, geez, that was an A, but maybe it's a B. I might tweak things a bit, but I'm leaving one day and going to the next with some sort of plan for use of my time. I even go the next step, which is to allocate time to it. Check email, 8 to 8:15. Return calls from yesterday, 8:15 to 8:45. Schedule new client meetings, 8:45 to 9:15. I'm blocking out my time. If you ask me what I'm doing after this at 11:30, I have a meeting with a client. At 12:30, I have another client meeting. At 1:30, I have another client meeting. At 2, I have another meeting. That meeting is going to end at 1:45 because at 3 o'clock, I'm doing another presentation for your company. And because I've been doing these 4 presentations this week for your company, I haven't scheduled as many things. I knew I was going to be busy. I knew I was going to be a little mentally fatigued. You do 2 of these in a day and it wears you out. So I built a schedule building in time. Today didn't work so well because of the snow. That's why it's back to back to back. If it weren't for the snow, I had a nice window from 12:30 to 2 o'clock to chill out. I was going to eat some lunch. I was going to go play my guitar. That's gone. But that's okay, because this is an exception. And I got a late start today because of snow. But because I managed my time, I could build things and ship things. And if you're saying, well, I can do the best scheduling in the world, but what if someone adds something to my list? Build time in your day for the fires. Don't book appointments 8:30 to 4:30 back to back to back to back to back to back to back with no lunch, no break. First of all, you're going to kill yourself. You're a heart attack waiting to happen. And second of all, you're not going to be effective. Leave space for the unexpected. You're going to deal with the unexpected either way. I'm just saying know it up front. And the higher you are up in the management of the organization, the more you need to think about this. I have a client who runs a health department in a county in North Carolina, and we've been working on his time management for about 6 or 7 months. He's finally gotten on board. He only schedules 2.5 hours of meetings a day. The rest, he's dealing with fires. With the coronavirus and vaccine, he's been all over the place. He needs to do that. He's like, well, I got to schedule my 8 hours. I'm like, dude, you got way too many fires coming. Because they're getting the vaccine at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they've got to get going out the door the next morning. I'm like, you can't manage that unless you build time in for it. He fought me on that, and then he finally realized. Now he's like, this is great. And one day he called me at 3:30. He's like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm like, well, what do you have? He's like, well, I could go back and get through my old emails. I'm like, go. I sometimes have a list of what I call the rainy day activities. If the 4th presentation I'm doing for your company this afternoon got canceled, I have a list of 2 or 3 things I could pop in at a moment's notice. They're not urgent, they're not required, but they would certainly help. Which brings me to the Eisenhower matrix. And if you want to see more about the Eisenhower matrix, you can go, there's a great book by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You can also look this up. This is Dwight Eisenhower. This is how he set up things. And I'd like you to try it. So I want you to take another sheet of paper, or the back of the sheet of the paper that you were using, and put a line down the middle and a line across the middle. So you should have 4 quadrants, roughly equal size. And then in the upper left, I want you to write urgent and important. Urgent and important. In the upper right, I want you to write urgent and not important. And then in the lower left, important but not urgent. And then the best category of all, the last one, on the right at the bottom, not important and not urgent. Now I want you to go to your list of 10 and plunk them into one of those categories. Every single item should go in that category, and write that out. Write it out in that grid. Trust me, it'll make a difference. Be honest with yourself. Urgent and important means someone's expecting this thing to be done. Like if my client says to me, if you don't get me an invoice today, I won't be able to pay you until April. That's urgent and that's darn important. Not important and not urgent is, yeah, Bob, can you write me a recommendation on LinkedIn? Sure, I'll get to it. Haven't yet, it's been 3 days. And I told the person, it's gonna be a little while. Do you need this right now? No, anytime you get to it, okay. Jonathan, somehow your microphone's open, so I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. How's this one working for you, if you don't mind sharing?
This, you mean writing down the Eisenhower matrix? Well,
Yeah, how's it working for you?
Most of the things end up in the urgent and important because you told us to just write down things we have to do. But I am putting things in some of the other, a couple in some of the other categories.
Okay, what I would tell you is if you are defaulting to urgent and important, and that's the majority, you need to start thinking about what you need to do in a day. Because if everything you do is urgent and important, that means everything you do is also not urgent and important. And discerning what truly is urgent and important. I'm not saying things aren't urgent and important. Look, they are. But is it really 7 of the 10? You know, if that were the case, the Eisenhower matrix would be really simple. Here's one category, urgent and important. End of story. Eisenhower saw the other 3, and what he used this to do was help people understand. And this is an exercise that you can do with your team. If you're leading a team, this is really great activity. Whiteboard it, do it on computer with a whiteboard, have them list all the things that you have to do as a team, and then put them in the categories. What always happens is everyone starts with everything's urgent and important, and then they start to realize, well, yeah, this really isn't important, but it's urgent. Which means what? If it's urgent but not important, it means it's someone else's priority. Now, if it's my boss, that's important. If it's one of my clients, that's real important. But if it's a friend, your urgency isn't my crisis. And your company, I understand, customers are going to say, hey, I have a problem here. I need you to fix this. And you guys are going to go on a fire drill and you're going to get done over the next 12 hours. I get it. I've worked in that environment. That is urgent and important. But the normal run-of-the-mill day stuff, not urgent and important. It's not. Does that help at all, Jonathan? I'm not picking on you. I don't want you to feel like I picked on you.
Mhm.
You just provided me the example that happens so often. You know, I've done this workshop where I'll have 20 people in the room and I'll look while they're writing it down when we were in the room together, and urgent and important was everything. I'm like, I'm sorry, was I unclear with the rules? No, not at all. I'm like, must have been. I gave you 4 categories. There's a reason. No, everything I do is important and urgent. And one guy said that to me, and his boss was there, and I said, all right, let's go through a list. And I said to boss, everything that you agree is urgent and important, please tell me. We went down, the first 6, no. 7th one, that's urgent and important. 8th one, no. 9th one, no. 10th one, no. They weren't in sync. And it's really clear, if you want to know why employees leave to go to other jobs, it's because they feel like they're not being valued. If you have an employee that all you have to do is get in trouble, oh, this is screwed up, you have to fix it, you're setting them up to be low morale and they will want to quit. And they'll leave for another job because it's there. And if they're millennials, they don't even care about the money. They'll take a $60,000 pay cut from $100,000 to $40,000 to be at a job that they feel is better for them as a person. I can't imagine, but I tested that with some of my millennial friends, and they're like, yeah, I would. So you run the risk of losing that great employee by burning them out, because if they think everything you give them is urgent and important, you're not setting the right criteria. It's crying wolf. It's the boy who cried wolf, ultimately. Anyone want to share their observations on this one? Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go on then. Next up is the 3 rocks. Now, there is a website, 7bigrocks.com, I think it is. It gets into this whole philosophy of rocks, that you have to have 7 rocks in your life, and some should be personal, some should be professional, some should be spiritual. Totally awesome. I'm cutting to the chase. What I do often for the day is set 3 things I'm going to get done today before I go to bed. These are the 3 rocks, man. These are, no matter what, I'm going to rock these 3 things by the end of the day. If I don't get it done by the end of the workday, I work into the evening, or I come back to it after dinner, or I work after my wife goes to bed, or I get up early the next morning. Last week, I was up at 4 a.m. working on something I said I was going to get done the day before. My rule is by 7 a.m. the next day, those 3 things will be done no matter what. 3 things. Not 4, not 2, 3. That's the 3 big rocks. Now, if you think that's a great step in the right direction, I will tell you, one of the ways I work with people on their time management where we start the ball rolling is one big thing. What's the one thing you're going to promise me you're going to get done today? And then I say to them, if they're a client, I'm like, hey, okay, text me when you get it finished. And at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I text them because I haven't heard from them. Hey, how you doing on that thing? Oh, I totally forgot. I didn't realize you were going to check on me. And then the next day, I'm like, so what's one big thing? And it's that thing again. I'm like, okay. And that day they get done and they text me. I'm like, all right, what's your thing for tomorrow? Or what often happens is they get the one big thing done by, I don't know, 11 a.m. And they're like, now what do I do? I'm like, create another one big thing. No law, it says you can't have 2 in a day. What we're doing here is a mind game. We're playing a game with our mind. We're saying we've got all these things that we need to do. We want to prioritize. We want to choose carefully, judiciously. And it works. Okay, so that's one big thing. That was pretty easy. And here's another quote. Time equals life. Therefore, waste your time and waste your life. Master your time and master your life. If you're being efficient with your work time, that means you have more free time. To me, work is great. I love my job. I miss on the weekends. I wish I could work. Truly. I love what I do. But I also love time with my nieces and nephews, with kids next door, with my wife, with my family and friends, playing golf, playing guitar, reading a book. When I'm not managing my time right, those things are what get lost. You're in control if you choose. So here are some things I've learned over the years of my own time management struggles and those of other people. First, write everything you need to do down. If you think it, ink it. Franklin Covey said that back when they had the Franklin Covey planners. If you think it, ink it. Put it down on paper. It doesn't mean you have to deal with it right away. Just get it down on paper. If someone gives you 3 things to do, write it down. Keep a little notebook. I have one of these notebooks. One of these composition notebooks. I bought it at Michael's, I think. I bought 10 of them and they cost, I think they were 30 cents each right before school started. And I write inside it everything I have to do. So if you ask me what my list is, I can go in here. Here's some notes I have from a meeting. I try to keep everything in there. So this is my Bible of what I'm doing. This is where it all lands. So if you took this away from me, I'd be rudderless tomorrow. If you're not putting everything in one place, and believe me, I love technology. Look at this presentation. How many presentations have you seen that use technology this way? I love technology, but doing a to-do list on the computer does not satisfy. Because number 2 here, I don't get to mark things off. I love crossing things out. Someone in the group the other day was telling me that they love crossing things out so much that they put things down that they did, like just something like, oh, sent my mother a card. It was just like wasn't on his list, but he added to the list so he could cross it off. And I was like, dude, I'm so with you. I do the same thing. I love that feeling of crossing things off. And checking the box on my computer doesn't feel as good. Whatever approach you're going to use, commit to it for a couple months. Jonathan's asking me, if it's not on the computer, how do you read what you wrote? That's a good question. My scribble is my scribble. But one of the things we know from some of the latest neuroscience research, the tactile act of writing things down on a sheet of paper changes, it adds neurons. Different neurons fire different ways. For what it's worth. So whatever you're going to do, whichever one of these you're going to try, commit to it for a couple months. It will not feel right the first day, the first week, the first month. You will screw it up. And no system that you try is perfect. And there are other systems I didn't cover. The bullet journal is a system that's been really popular in the last 4 or 5 years. You can look it up online, I think bulletjournal.com, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a whole movement. There's a get things done movement. There are so many time management strategies out there because no one seems to really cling to anything for long. Whatever system you choose, modify it to meet your demands. Someone was complaining to me, they're like, I really would like my calendar to be on 15-minute intervals so I can write it in. I was like, okay. I went online, I found a 15-minute what's the increment? That's the word I'm looking. 15-minute increment calendar, daily planner. I sent it to him. I said, here's a PDF, go. It's like, oh, this is awesome. The one I had didn't work that way. Make it work the way you need it to be. Don't worry if you have a bad day. It's going to happen. There are days that my time management goes right out the window. I just go, oh, well, and get up the next day and move on. If I'm such a bad person, I'm evil, blah. No, get up the next day and I move on. And most of all, celebrate successes. If I get my 3 things done all 5 days of the week, there is usually bourbon and my Friday at 5 o'clock. That's my little reward. And it's the good bourbon, not the average day stuff, but the good stuff comes out. I celebrate that success. If I can get 15 things done in a week, 15 big things, yeah, that's worthy of celebration, no doubt. Here's another quote from another business author, Peter Turia. A plan is what, a schedule is when. It takes both a plan and a schedule to get things done. So you can prioritize, but then you have to allocate time to it. How long will it take? And as you start allocating your day and saying from 9 to 9:30, I'm going to do this, from 9:30 to 10:30, I'm going to do this, you'll start to see whether you're right or wrong with your allocation. Often what I find with people is their time management's lacking because they're not right-sizing what they need to do. They're assuming they can code something and it's going to take them 5. They have a 45-minute meeting, but they don't build in time after meeting to go tell their staff what they learned. So right-sizing it makes a difference. Next steps. Choose some way to try. Take control and do it. Just do it. Again, you're not going to be perfect. And if you have success for a day, a week, a month, celebrate it. Charles Richards says, don't be fooled by the calendar. There are only as many days in the year as you make use of. One man gets only a week's value out of a year, while another man gets a full year's value out of a week. Which one are you? Which one do you commit to be going forward? All right, so let's get brutally honest here. What's standing in your way? What's stopping you from being effective at your time management? I'll tell you, for me, you know what it is? I love to be the hero. When a client calls up and goes, hey, we had someone cancel a presentation. Could you do this thing tomorrow? Dun, 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 dun. I put on my Mighty Mouse cape. Here I come to save the day. And off I go, saving the day. I love that feeling. But when I tell a client I can save the day tomorrow, what does that do to all the things I need to do tomorrow? What does that do for my other clients? What does that do for my weekend? I can tell you what, if Noah said, hey, can you do another presentation tomorrow for us? I'd do it for them, but it would mean I'm working Saturday. And I'd have to agree to that. So anyone want to share what's in the way? Because I'd love to do a little free coaching, walk you through it. Who wants to share what's in the way? Anyone?
Sure, I could share what's in my way.
Who's this? I'm sorry.
Oh, Jonathan.
Okay, John, I'm sorry. You weren't on my screen the way I did oriented, and I just wanted to make sure I knew who I was talking to. There you are. All right, now I see you. Beautiful. Love the background.
So, I mean, I think it's just too many emergencies. It's like you can have a great plan and then all of a sudden, all the stuff comes at you. And then, I think that's always been the problem is that sometimes you get it's easy to get very excited about having everything planned out and it works for a little while and you're happy about it. And then some emergencies come up and they kind of take over.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
Who decides when it's an emergency?
Well, I mean, I guess you could, it's a philosophical question because, I mean, the company or boss, they decide, but then ultimately, obviously, we all decide, if you look at it philosophically like that.
Is there an evaluation of how many emergencies the company can decide to have? The firehouse down the road from me can only cover one fire at a time. If there's a second fire, someone else gets called in. If there's a third fire, someone else gets called in. They can't be at 3 fires at once. Yeah, I've been to fire scenes. I used to be a newspaper reporter. There was never once where they're fighting a fire and the flames coming out and they go, oh, we're out, Bob. We've got another fire call down the road. And I've seen situations. I wrote a story about 3 fires within 3 blocks of each other, one after another, because there was an arsonist. They didn't separate. They dealt with that fire and then they moved to the next fire, but someone else covered it. So part of it, I think, Jonathan, is what can we manage reasonably? And I would also, if I were going to meet with your team, I would have the discussion about what's a fire. What's a fire and what's a fire drill? Because often the fire drills look like fires. If you talk to the kids that live next door to me, when they have a fire drill, they don't know if it's a fire drill or a fire. They're just told, get out of the school.
The thing is that, Bob, this is Raj. Lot of business, especially technology team, actually works on a lot of client related stuff, which actually means that we have to meet the deadlines, and many of the clients are not related to each other, so they all probably don't have the same deadlines. Everybody wants their stuff done now, and tech team actually gets suffered because they have to service everybody at the same time. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, that definitely is right. And I think in the case of Jonathan's feeling this a lot because he's been filling in for somebody who had left. So, we have, a lot of expectations. So it's hard to, right now we're in a spot where it's very hard to manage all of these expectations. And I think we need to get better at that and planning. So, one of the things, Bob, that you mentioned earlier in your presentation was that sometimes these problems are things that were just not planned for. It could have been a long time ago, I think you said. And so I think the difficulty we face here is that we have what I may call like in development, like technical development, we have a term called technical debt, right? Which is like, you put off something because you don't have time to do with it right now. You got to get this feature out the door. The customer's expecting it, but you're taking shortcuts essentially. And if you never schedule time to go back and address that, it comes back to bite you. And that's kind of what's happened here.
And that's probably what's causing the fires, right, Alex and Jonathan?
I think so. I mean, Jonathan, what do you think?
I mean, I think that's true. I mean, some of it is cultural, but I think you're right. I mean, if the software worked perfectly and there were no bugs, then well, our time would be a lot easier to plan. How to move forward with the next features than if there are a lot of bugs and a lot of issues and people are trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay,
Another
so
thing,
let me give you a comparison. I live in Baltimore and I'm an Amazon Prime member, and I was looking to buy something this morning. And on the Amazon Prime page, it said, service delays because of inclement weather. And I wanted to order something and I had Prime, so it should be 2 days or less. I'm in Baltimore, we often get things the same day. It was forecasting a week. Did I call up and cancel my Prime membership? No. And Amazon markets the Prime membership 2 days. I accepted it. And what I would tell you is your customers will accept it. They want things right, not rushed. I used to do web development. I was the guy who talked to a client and then I hired web developers. If the web developers came to me and said, we're not going to meet the deadline because we ran into this problem and we need to fix it. When I explained it to the client, never once did the client go, no, by God, I want this done by Friday. They said, how long will it take to get it right? If I'm working on your car and I fix your brakes and I get done, I'm close to done and you're like, dude, I really need my car back because I've got to be at the meeting. You said it was going to be 4 hours. I'm like, well, I'm still worried about the brakes. I don't know if they're going to work real well. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to skip the meeting. You are not hopping into your Accord with brakes that the mechanic just said might not work. Will not happen. But what you're saying as an organization, I'm not blaming anyone, but organizationally, I certainly have heard this thread that we're okay with putting the car out on the road with bad brakes. And, odds are good. I mean, they're going to stop sooner or later. Inertia is only going to go so far. They're either going to hit something or stop. We know it's going to be okay or not, but we're willing to take that chance. I used to run a print shop and I wasn't involved in the actual work, but I had a print shop manager and we would screw up projects and he'd have to reprint things. And he said, Bob, it's amazing to me. We always have time to do it again, but we never have time to do it right. And I didn't really get it the first time he said it, but the third time he said it, I was like, oh, shoot, you're right. And every time he had to do a project over, we paid him overtime. He didn't mind. He loved it. He said to me one day, I screw up every project. But that's what I think you've got to accept as an organization to do this right. And Alex, to your point, it's going back to the beginning and trying to figure out where the shortcuts are and having the discussion and building into the big schedule when you're going to go back and fix it. That's what's missing. The fire drills are largely because of early decisions that were not made in complete, in full depth. It was just all right, take that shortcut. But if you say, I love your technical debt idea. If you say, hey, 3 months ago, we took this shortcut. Now we got to pay the piper. If I borrow on my credit card, oh, I can't pay back. No, I can't. No, they keep coming. And they charge me interest. Organizationally, it's the same thing. And where you get charged that you don't realize is the stress, the feelings, the frustration. And Jonathan, and I'm sure, Jonathan, it sounds like you lead a team. I guarantee your team would tell me the same thing. We're totally under the gun. And organizations can do this. I'm not telling you guys can't do this, but it's not sustainable. And it's not how you grow. And go look at Apple, one of the bigger tech companies. They've delayed launches of products because it wasn't ready. Apple, one of the best technology companies in the world. If it's not ready, it's not ready. We're not going to run the risk of people being upset. And remember when the iPhone came out and the antenna didn't work right? They spend a fortune on the workaround. They haven't had a glitch like that in a long time because they learned their lesson. Now, in fairness, I'm lucky. I'm the consultant and I can tell you what to do, and I don't have to sit at the meeting and deal with the CEO and all that. I don't have to deal with your clients and customers. But I will tell you this, anyone on this call who's in a leadership role, this is not sustainable for you, for your employees, and for the company. And just think about that brake job. Are you putting something in the client's hands that is that at accord with potentially faulty brakes? And can you live with that? Because when I think those things out at the front end, I don't have the problem. I just say to the client, look, here's the deal. It's going to be another 2 weeks. I'm really sorry, but that if you want my best work, that's what it takes. Well, we need this, blah, 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 PPP. You know, I get, hey, it's business. Okay, so real quick, another quote, it's surprising how much free time and productivity you gain when you lose the busyness in your mind. This is what happens when we're constantly trying to remember everything and trying to make it all work. That's when we're busy in our head and you don't get to enjoy yourself. That's why my friend can't watch TV with his kids. And then just because I know we didn't cover everything, if you're struggling with these things, I give you 3 solutions. One, I run a Facebook group with a friend called the Ring of Renegades, and we are gathering business leaders, owners, entrepreneurs, tech people, you name it, and we're having discussions about these types of things. We're learning from each other and we're growing with each other. And it's a safe space to have the discussion, to ask things about how do you do this? What works for you? Believe it or not, my this notebook was a suggestion from someone in that group. I was like, I need something that's kind of this size. I want real thin lines. So like, go to Michael's, they're on sale. The next thing, I love your company. I want you guys to succeed. If you want to schedule a 15-minute free one-on-one discussion with me to try to resolve an issue, especially around time management, I'm happy to do that. If you want to do that, go to LinkedIn and just connect with me there and just send me a note and say, Bob, I want to get on your schedule. I'll send you a little calendar link. You can find a 15-minute window and we'll do what I call a laser solution session. The key word in that being a solution. I will help you find the solution to the issue. And we've got about 7 minutes. If you want, you're free to go if you want, or if you have questions, I will be happy to take your questions.
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
So I'll be honest, I'm an avid procrastinator, but I
love your honesty.
I have a recent newborn. I am on the last leg of grad school.
Okay.
I work a full-time job, essentially, and I have 2 other kids that I need to be responsible for. So 3 kids total. So essentially, I have 3 full-time jobs right now is what it feels like.
I would agree.
And in addition to as I stated earlier, I'm an avid procrastinator. I constantly have the feeling that like there's never enough time in a day. While I recognize everything, like you said, if everything's important, nothing's important. I 100% agree with you on that. But it sure feels like everything is important. Like my list, the list that you had, the A, B, and C, there were like more A's than B's or C's. And then there was one that is important to me, but in the grand scheme of things is not important. Just out of curiosity.
Right. Go ahead.
My question is, how would you begin to like pull things apart and then put it back together so that you stack it in a way that you approach each scenario in the most efficient way?
Okay, first of all, David, I appreciate you sharing, and I understand completely because when I went to graduate school, I did it Saturdays only from about 8 a.m. to 9 or 10 p.m. every Saturday for 18 months. I missed a family wedding. I missed some trips. I worked a full-time job. It was really crazy. But that's when I learned time management. I had no choice. I had to get my work done. I was taking a writing program, so we had to write. Writing, you can't just sit down like 10 minutes, bang out a paper. These were high-level journalism papers with quotes and research and all. So I got really good at allocating the time. My Sundays, I always joke about 1992 football season. I have no idea what happened. I saw no games that year. And that's one of the things I would say to you. Are there things that you can section off that say, I like to watch football, but this is not the time to be watching football? Can you marry things together? So for instance, if I go to the beach, I get bored. I might be writing my book at the beach. My wife's reading a book and I'm writing. She doesn't care. She knows I'm not working. I'm just doing that thing that I enjoy. So it's really thinking about those priorities and thinking about ways to make it work. I used to teach college and I graded papers in the car when we were going places. I graded papers on vacation. I graded papers at the haircut. When I was getting my haircut, you get there and have to wait. I'd always be sitting there grading papers. They'd be like, "Oh, it's the professor." That's what they called me in there. And they're like, "Dude, you really need to relax. Grab a beer out of the fridge and relax." I'm like, "No, I got stuff to do." We can be incredibly efficient when we're forced to be. But if you procrastinate, it's going to catch up with you. You're going to drop a ball. You're probably driving your family crazy, and they're not willing to tell you. The kids know.
100% agree.
Those kids know. I'm telling you, kids know a lot more than we think. And if you were different about it, if you managed your time better and were all in with the time with them, and then went and did your work, that would be it. And when I was in grad school, I lost a lot of sleep. That was one resource that I really had to sacrifice to get things done. But 18 months later, I have a graduate degree. The world changed from that moment on. So it was worth that investment. But whenever I get a really busy day, I think back to grad school days and be like, I survived that. I have the skills that I can do it. Does that help at all? Okay.
Perfect.
And David, if you want to set up one of those laser solution sessions,
I plan on
would
it.
love to talk to you like really specifically for 15 minutes.
I plan on it.
Awesome. Beautiful. Any other questions, comments?
Just how do you get like long-term change? Because again, like people, they learn something, maybe they have their New Year's resolution, everything's perfect for a few weeks. Then something like changes their life, something like that. They, after a while, they're back to wherever they were.
It's a great question, Jonathan. That's why I try to go with the body, what the body feels. Because I find when I realize what this does to my body, to my sleep, to my ability to relax, to my ability to not consume alcohol, to consume it to forget, that's when I realize I've got to stay true to these things. Just like with exercise. I need to exercise each day or I won't sleep. I need to exercise each day because it helps my heart. The pros outweigh the cons. But I would also say it's organizational. If your organization chooses to not just do this presentation and then walk away, but says, hey, we want to get serious about this, what would that look like? And have the hard discussion with the board or the CEO or the executive team or whoever it is, and then commit to it. Hey, we can't do this fire thing. This stupid guy explained this thing about the brakes on an Accord. We're putting faulty brakes on the Accord. And yeah, he's right. We'll stop, but it might be in the side of the building. Most of us in leadership roles don't understand the implications. But I think Alex was starting to realize that going back, you could see what was coming down the pike, just like on Southwest Airlines. If the flight is late at 7 a.m., by 9 p.m., all bets are off. They know that. That's why miraculously, when you're on an 11 a.m. flight and they're 10 minutes behind, suddenly they can get to the next place quicker than ever. It's like, what was that? Oh, well, we kind of hit the gas pedal. We wanted to get back on schedule. You all can do the same thing. You have more flexibility, but it's only if you take it proactively. If you're reactive, you're never going to make progress. And guess what? Your clients are just going to have to wait. They only impose a deadline because they can get away with it. I have a client who wanted me to do something this morning. I'm like, dude, I got a presentation. You'll have to wait. I really need it. Find someone else. He hasn't texted me yet. He'll be fine. It'll be done tomorrow. He'll sleep okay. He'll be pissed for a day or two. But come Monday, he'll be like, by the way, what was that presentation? This is a company I've done a lot of work for. They're really great, blah, blah. Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. You have to be willing to take control. Anything else? I'm sorry, it's after 11:30. I apologize for keeping you. I want to thank you all. This has been great. I love working with your company.